Hey man, how are you?
Good. Just a delicious breakfast sandwich. Feeling nice and full. How are you?
Good. Should we do the intro for the second podcast?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome back to Gridiron Zeros. I'm your host, Lucas Scott, joined by
Al Scott.
And this week on the podcast, we're going to go over a busy week in the NFL where we saw a lot of players franchise tag, some players not franchise tagged, some players released. And then we're going to get into our weekly topical segment.
Yeah, this week we're going to be discussing the top 10 free agents and whether or not we would, as an NFL GM, pass on them or pay them. And then we're going to cap it off with our Lions discussion of the week. Last week we talked about the end of the Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia era. So this week we are going to start talking about the new era in Detroit with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, the new head coach and GM. So
Metallica Dan
should be fun.
Should be fun. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you stick around. All right. So leading off the week, we had one major signing coming out of Dallas. Dak Prescott, quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, gets signed to a 4-year, $160 million deal. What are your thoughts?
It felt kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
It felt like he always was going to sign there. I know that they went back and forth on the contract for forever, seemingly.
Yeah.
And I think people were maybe worried it could be a Kirk Cousins situation where just the deal never gets done and he leaves.
Tagged, yeah.
But I don't know. It always felt like this was going to happen. So I think the money is pretty crazy. It's a lot of money, like compared to a lot of the contracts around the league, even the top tier ones like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson's contracts like this. I think it's more money a year.
I don't know. It's tough to compare the two because Dak's deal is only 4 years and I think Mahomes is like 10.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good signing. I think that Dak would have gotten more money if he didn't blow out his ankle last year.
Really? You think so?
Yeah.
Because he's seemed pretty like he's not gonna budge on the number that he wants, and that's why this deal took so long from both sides. And I don't know if he's the kind of person that would be like, I had an injury, so I'm gonna put my number back a little bit. I feel like this is a number based on the market right now, and this is the number he wanted. I think I don't know if he injured anything to do with it. Could be
because from Jerry Jones' standpoint, I mean, he kind of screwed Dak in that aspect, like he could have paid him what he was worth last year and just chose not to. And then he goes out and gets injured like that while playing for him. So from Jerry Jones' aspect, you kind of cost this guy what could have been, millions and millions of dollars. So paying him what he is due probably was the right move, which is kind of shocking from Jerry Jones,
I also did want to note, too, that last week in the show, we talked about how we were talking about during our Russell Wilson discussion that the Cowboys should not franchise Dak Prescott because this is the last time that they could potentially do that. And if he came back to the table wanting a new deal after being franchise tagged twice, they couldn't do it again, and they basically would have to pay him whatever deal he wanted, otherwise he walked.
True.
But what ended up happening with this deal is they used the franchise tag on him.
Yeah, so I think
he asked
tagged for this year, and then they just tagged this contract onto that.
It's an extension, right? Yeah. And he deliberately asked for the tag this year because he does not want to be tagged again. He does not want that to ever happen again. So I was really surprised by that. It's a really smart move, and to my knowledge, I've never heard of anyone doing that when they're going to negotiate a new deal. Kirk Cousins never did that. I guess he never really got to this point where Washington was ever going to seriously consider re-signing him. But no, I think that was a smart move for Dak. I think it's a bold move for the Cowboys because now they're in bed with Dak, and I think he's a very good quarterback. He seems like he's at times he can be a top 10 quarterback in the league. His injury history, I think it's just last year. It's the only one that really sticks out. He's been pretty consistent.
And that was like a freak injury.
Right.
You know, that doesn't happen all that often. It will be interesting to see how that affects him. Because, you know, like he's still pretty young.
Yeah, like 26 or 7. He's pretty young
around
still.
there. So I can't imagine that it will affect him, you know, this year, next year, but maybe down the road.
Yeah.
It can start to bother him, and maybe that ankle will become a little bit more injury prone.
How did the Cowboys have the cap to make this work, though? Because
I don't know how they don't have too many big deals, do they? They got Zeke. I think a couple offensive linemen have
their defense. I know they're paying a couple guys like DeMarcus Lawrence and
are they? God, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Got it. Yeah. Oh my God, they're not based on last year, especially.
They just keep paying offensive players.
They paid Amari Cooper.
Yeah, that's true.
Like their line, they've got a lot of money. Like
I think all their money is tied up in their offense now.
So I don't understand how they have the. I don't really understand the NFL cap situation at all, to be honest with you, because teams just find a way to make it work. Yeah. Like New Orleans right now is like $60 million into the cap, but they'll find a way to make it work and still sign people. So
well, I think all you have to do if you're over the cap is just pay like a huge ass fine to the NFL.
Oh, really? That's how it works. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was also thinking about with Dak coming back. We got a pretty limited sample size last year of him in this new Mike McCarthy Dallas Cowboys team. True. And before he went out, they were not very good. Their record wasn't very good. They were losing games, and the NFC East was a total trash bag division last year. It was such a mess from top to bottom. I think the winner of that division was like 7-9 or something, just a terrible record. But I don't know. I think Dak is a good sign, but he's still there with Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. I think their one major win was against Atlanta in that huge comeback.
And Atlanta stunk.
Yeah.
They were terrible last year. The Lions beat them. So that's how bad they were.
That's the standard for a team. Did the Lions beat you?
Yeah, the Lions beat like the Falcons and the Jags and like a couple other terrible teams along the way. So I don't know. I wasn't that impressed with what I saw last year from that coaching staff, but I think this was the right move for them. I think they had to do it.
Yeah, I think they did too. I just think it's going to cripple them in the long run, especially in that defensive aspect.
Yeah.
Because I think Jerry Jones is just going to keep drafting offensive players. He just loves a high-powered offense that's going to put up 40 points.
Really to see CeeDee Lamb burst onto the scene a little bit more. I know he had some plays last year, but I think Justin Jefferson was kind of the bar for what the rookie receiver class should be.
He set it high too.
Right, and CeeDee Lamb coming out, I think he was graded as in the top 3 of wide receiver prospects last year, and there was a lot of expectations. He just fell into the Cowboys' lap, so I was really excited to see what they would do with him. But then we got the Andy Dalton show for most of the season, and that was so boring to watch, and it just
didn't work.
Yeah, it'll make them more watchable, if anything.
Yeah. Well, should we switch to another quarterback that got a interesting deal?
Yeah, speaking of unwatchable and not that interesting, that's a perfect segue into Cam Newton signing with the Patriots.
Astonishing.
It was really surprising.
Really surprising.
He re-signs with them for 1 year, $13 million, $6 million in incentives.
So a large majority of that contract is going to be based on his play. So I don't know how that's going to work out for him. I mean, he took the 1 year, I think, veterans minimum last year. So he didn't get paid a whole lot last year. And they were probably right to do that, considering all. But yeah, I don't get it. I really don't.
I won't hate this move if in the next couple of weeks when the draft happens, if they land like a Mac Jones or they land a quarterback in someone.
Yeah.
Chris Sims loves that dude from Texas A&M. He's got him like his top 5. His top 5 is kind of weird, but if they get someone that they can groom, I would support the move because Cam is a proven NFL quarterback and he's been to a Super Bowl. He's been an MVP. He's got
it's been a couple of years.
I know. But as a person that a young guy can learn from, it's pretty perfect. As far as does this make New England a playoff team this year or a competitive team this year? I think we saw everything we needed to see last year. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think that this will improve their team. Personally, I think it will only make them worse. I can't stand Cam Newton.
You think last year?
Yeah,
absolutely. They were not good last year.
No, they weren't. And large part of it was Cam's play. I mean, the guy can't throw the ball down the field. His shoulder is shot. He's a horse with a broken leg, and Bill just needs to take the shotgun out of the shed and put him down. You know, I got
that's a pretty dark analogy.
It is 100%. But the guy, he can't play the quarterback position anymore. He just can't. You know,
I think a lot of his game was also dependent on his just his freak athleticism and his mobility.
Yeah,
and
which,
as he's getting,
to his credit, I feel like he still has a little bit of that.
Well, he's still a massive human being. He's still a huge dude, and like he's still a freak athlete. They definitely leaned into his mobility, I guess.
Yeah,
but
they drew up some plays for that.
But a quarterback they need to throw the ball. I mean, that's literally the position. So I don't like the move for winning this year again, unless they take someone in the draft or they have another guy behind him. I guess this puts to bed all the Jimmy Garoppolo talk.
I was going to say.
I thought that was kind of a pipe dream to begin with, to be honest with you, that they would trade back for him.
Yeah.
At by the way, a much higher contract price.
Much higher.
Cam,
which is not a Patriots thing to do.
No.
They don't take on huge contracts like ever.
As far as contracts goes, this is a Patriots quarterback contract.
Yeah.
It's not very high, and there's even like the highest he can get is 13. So he might even get 13. And to have
I can't imagine that he does. Yeah.
I don't know, unless they add a ton around him, and I don't see them doing that either, because I just don't get it, man. I don't get the Patriots plan here. Like, I thought Bill Belichick and Tom would leave
pretty lost.
Didn't you kind of think that he would be like rejuvenated to kind of hardcore jumpstart this thing from the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why does it feel like every move he's made has been like a non-inspired Band-Aid move?
Couldn't tell you.
They are so boring. I cannot understate how boring they were to watch last year.
They don't have anybody that can go, break one off for 50 yards. And that offensive line is, obviously the starting point. Cam was under pressure a lot. I harp on Cam a lot, but in defense of his play, they weren't really giving him a whole lot to work with. The wide receiver core is not good. The running back core is not terrible, but again, a running back is only as good as their offensive line.
Speaking of their offensive line, Joe Thuney is a free agent right now, and he's probably one of their better linemen. He's gonna command a high price on the market because offensive linemen always do. But he's a pretty notable free agent that they did not franchise tag, and a key piece of that offensive line. And like you're saying, they need their offensive line to be in good shape if Cam's going to have a shot here. I will give them the benefit of the doubt because they always seem to find guys like Joe Thuney, like always
next man up.
Kind of always happens. So we'll see. I think we're headed for a lot of the same. I'd like to know what the direction of this team is. I know that they were just the greatest dynasty ever.
Yeah.
And Belichick's obviously a mad genius. He knows what he's doing. I just like
now
I said,
it's back to the question.
I don't think so.
Was it Brady?
I think it's 6 Super Bowls. It can't just be Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of people are coming out now and saying, the Patriot way was Tom Brady. And when he left, Belichick's still there, and I'm sure that the Patriot way feel is still there, but maybe the heart and soul of it isn't. And,
he definitely came to Tampa and installed a culture by himself alone.
Absolutely.
So there's some merit to that for sure. But I sit more in the camp of it was a marriage over however long he was there. I don't remember how many years, but
20.
Yeah, a long time. It was a marriage between the two of them that made this work.
Yeah. Switching over to the franchise tags, why don't we just go ahead and run through some of the big names that received it?
Yeah, so these are some of the biggest names in the league that did receive the tag, including Dak Prescott, as we previously touched on. Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Brandon Sharif, the guard for the Washington football team, Cam Robinson, tackle for the Jags, Leonard Williams for the Giants, Justin Simmons, safety for the Broncos, and Marcus Williams for the Saints, who I was really hoping the Lions would be able to make a run at because of his connections to the New Orleans defense. I thought that would be a really good fit. And despite our alleged safety depth, I feel like he would have been a slam dunk, but that's probably not going to happen now. And
No.
I will say, just before we get into it, just because these guys have been tagged, they can still be traded. And like that doesn't mean that they're going to be part of these teams for the long term. They also could do what Dak did and have the tag this year, but be resigned.
An extension. Yeah. Well, the biggest name on there to me, the one that has like the most juice behind it, is Allen Robinson. And I feel, I can't tell what he's thinking, but I feel bad for him because it definitely seems like he doesn't want to be there.
We kind of talked about it last week a little bit because we were talking about the Russell Wilson trade rumors, and we said, okay, well, if you're going to get Russell Wilson, you need to have him there.
Yeah.
Because who's he going to throw to? There's just Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, tight end rookie from last year. That's it.
That's it.
So they had to do this if they're actually being serious about the Russell Wilson thing.
Yeah.
And as of this recording, they're definitely the leader in the clubhouse. It sounds like every article that I've seen and everything I've seen on social has been very much leaning into the Bears being the belle of the ball here. So which is pure nightmare fuel for you and me, him being in the NFC North with Aaron Rodgers. And I know Kirk Cousins kind of whatever, but with him too.
He seems to have our number though.
Yeah, that's a stacked division to compete in. So, But anyways, this is about Allen Robinson, about free agents, not about Russell Wilson. We'll talk about that more later.
But, it's second year in a row, so he is free to leave the team next year if he wants. I will assume at this moment that he will, because there's just been so many times where he does something on social media that clearly shows that he doesn't want to be there. I think.
Did you do the infamous "I'm going to scrub my Instagram of all Bears related
posts"? He does that. Okay. He did that twice now. He's done that. He did that at some point during this past season, and he did that recently.
Okay.
So it's so clear to me that he doesn't want to be there. Which in this aspect, the franchise tag sucks because he doesn't have a choice in the matter.
All right, bold prediction time then. If the Bears do not land Russell Wilson, Allen Robinson will be traded.
Oh,
I'm calling that now because you're right. He does not want to be there. And the Bears kind of seem ambivalent to him being there.
Yeah.
I think this is purely to say, hey, Russ, we got Allen Robinson. We got something.
One more year.
And we can probably go sign a Kenny Galladay or Marvin Jones, like someone on the street. We'll bring him in. So that's my perspective on it. Another notable free agent wide receiver that got the tag, Chris Godwin. Did that surprise you?
A little bit. I mean,
with how many players that they needed to keep to run it back, were you surprised that he was the one that they chose to tag?
Not really. I mean, that wide receiving core is a large part of why their offense is so explosive.
Yeah.
So keeping Mike Evans and Chris Godwin together, you establish that you do have one of the most dominant wide receiving cores in the NFL. I also have to imagine that Antonio Brown will resign with them. I was
going to ask, dude, it was just a one and done deal last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Scotty Miller's under contract with them, and he was not even that notable of a person a couple months ago, but ever since the playoffs, he's kind of been the talking point for the offense.
He was like red hot at the beginning of the season too.
Okay.
Yeah, like people caught notice of him pretty quickly, and then once they brought in Antonio Brown, it seems like he kind of went away for a while.
And Tyler Johnson, the rookie from Minnesota, kind of flashed a couple times.
So I mean, maybe they don't bring Antonio back because they have a lot of young guys that can step up into that slot role.
Tom loves them, though.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Tom
gets what Tom wants.
Exactly. And I mean, how can you deny him at this point? He literally just led you to the Super Bowl.
Of course. Why didn't they use the franchise on a guy like Shaq Barrett? That's my question.
That's literally what I was just about to bring up.
They re-signed Levante David for 2 more years, which is a good signing because he's a leader of that defense. He's been there his whole career. Yeah, he's a little older, but they're in the win right now mode, and it's just a perfect fit. But Shaq Barrett has been a monster for them. I don't know why, because I don't think they can afford to re-sign him. I know Tom took a haircut willingly because that's how he's won so much. He's been like that his whole career, but they're not going to have the cap room to bring everyone back, and that's what they're trying to do, bring the band back together. Chris Godwin always felt like the guy who was the most, I don't want to say disposable. That sounds kind of shitty, but
it did seem like he took a back seat last season.
Well, we've been just saying, you have Mike Evans, you have Antonio Brown, presumably. You have these younger guys, and wide receivers are not that hard to find. Yeah, you can get a value signing on the street, and I know Chris Godwin is probably arguably a top 5 receiver as of last year. Think? He was really good last year and the year before.
I don't know if I put him up there.
So I said arguably. So but fair enough. But it was a confusing tag for me. I think they should have focused on their defense because they seem like they have more pieces there that are potentially leaving, and Tom can work with whatever, and he's already got a lot to work with. So it was a little perplexing.
True. Yeah, when you put it in that perspective, I suppose you are 100% right. I don't know if I would personally pay Godwin some of the top 5 wide receiver contracts. And it's for the exact reason that you just brought up. They have a lot of offensive weapons. They have a wide receiver 1 that's not going anywhere. They have, they can bring back Gronk on a very small contract.
We haven't even said his name once.
Yeah, they can bring him back. They have Cameron Brate, Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson. They can bring back Antonio Brown. So in that aspect, that tag is a little bit perplexing. I think I would pay Shaq Barrett, a sum of the top 5 for 1 more year. But I mean, who knows what goes on behind closed doors? Maybe Shaq Barrett was like, "Don't tag me."
I think he already was tagged once. I might be wrong on that, but I think he was.
All right, so now kind of switching over to players that didn't receive the tag and are now going to be testing free agency. The biggest name to come out of there has to be Aaron Jones.
Really? You think that's the biggest name?
Yeah, okay. I think so. Especially coming off the past 2 seasons that he's had. He's been a sensational running back, but it's kind of falling into this pattern where teams are not paying running backs, which I think is completely fair because I said it a little bit earlier, but a running back is only as good as his offensive line. And so, taking a large chunk of your cap and your salary and paying it to a running back that is good isn't a terrible thing. It's worked on other teams. Obviously, Derrick Henry is, I think, the highest paid running back in the league, but that seems worth it. He actually produces numbers regardless of how good that offensive line is.
Let me just say, I have not had a chance on this show to say how much I hate Aaron Rodgers. So I'm really glad that this is happening. I shouldn't just say Rodgers. I should say the Packers as a whole. Yeah. They're my most loathed sports franchise ever. Yeah. So, yeah, come at me. But no, all Packers hate aside, I guess it makes sense. That's just the landscape of the NFL right now. We're not seeing running backs getting paid, and it's not too much of a surprise they let him walk because I saw some rumors of how much he was asking for, and it seemed a little expensive.
Which, I mean, like in his case, it's right. He's been one of the top running backs in the league for the past 2 years.
This is his window to go get a bag of cash.
Exactly.
So you have to do it. Yeah. I'm surprised they did not franchise tag him just because of all the crap they've made Aaron Rodgers endure. Yeah. In the last couple of months, especially in that cryptic post-game interview in the NFC Championship game where he's like talking about he doesn't know what the future holds, sort of thing, which was a red flag for everyone who likes the Packers and wants to see him come back. you got to keep some guys around for him because that's part of why they can't get over the hump.
And I think the reason why they ended up not doing it is because they have Jamal Williams, who isn't as established, but that's only because he's been behind Aaron Jones for the past couple of seasons. He's shown that he can probably be a RB1. He's good in the passing game. He's explosive. So I think, the reason that they let him walk is because they know that they can fill his shoes, or at least they think they know. Which,
I don't think it's even close. I think Aaron Jones he's special. Like as far as running backs in the NFL right now, he's not like a Derrick Henry. He's not like a Zeke Elliott, who's just they're gonna be ground and pound a bunch of plays. He's so much more lethal in the passing game, and he's such a perfect fit for that system, especially since LaFleur got there.
Mm-hmm.
He's really been on the map.
Yeah.
So I guess if they feel like that's something that they can just plop someone else in, like a Jamal Williams, and to fill that role, it will work out. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you're wrong. I want to see you lose. But I think he will get paid. I don't think he's going to get paid as a top Zeke Elliott contract.
I don't think so either.
Or a Le'Veon Bell deal, which
backfired. I mean, I think that was really the start of it, of teams not paying running backs.
Him and Melvin Gordon were both total backfires for the running backs not getting paid.
Yeah, because Pittsburgh, tells him that he's not going to get the bag that he wants, and then James Conner comes onto the scene, which
I think he's a free agent now too. I think,
which I wouldn't be shocked if they let him walk, because they seem to be able to plop a running back in and have him be serviceable, not Le'Veon Bell, numbers, but he gets the job done, and that's exactly what James Conner was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon holds out and thinks that he should be paid buco bucks, but they weren't missing him when Austin Eckler was going off.
The problem is that the running back position has such a short shelf life on average. Your Adrian Petersons, your Frank Gores.
Yeah.
These guys
you got to go in
anomalies.
And you got to get your bag when you can.
So I support Aaron Jones in doing what he's doing.
And some team will pay him. Some team will pay him that money.
You know what? I do support this move for the Packers because I just want to see them keep prodding at Aaron Rodgers. Just keep seeing how much you can take away from him until he just says, screw it, I want out, I want to trade. Just keep it up.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it's possible, 100%.
So who else we got?
Chris Carson is another name on the list, which this one, it falls into the same territory of not paying a running back. But this one seems a little bit more shocking to me, considering that he isn't as big a name as Aaron Jones. Well, he's not, Aaron Jones, I would say, is probably top 5, arguably. But he's definitely top 10.
Yeah.
Chris Carson probably hovers in that arguably top 10, probably to top 15.
Top 15, I could see. The problem is that that whole Seattle backfield seems to have the injury bug ever since Marshawn Lynch left.
Absolutely.
So he's someone where I'm absolutely hesitant on offering him a big deal.
Yeah.
He could be a really good rotational piece, I feel like. Put him in the San Francisco backfield committee.
Yeah.
That could be really good. And I don't think you want to have him be like a bell cow kind of running back.
No,
I don't think
so either.
Because he really hasn't been that in Seattle consistently. He's flashed. He's been very good, right? Yeah. But I'd be hesitant to pay him a lot of money. He's the definition of these red flag running back contracts, in my opinion.
And maybe that's why they didn't tag him. Maybe because he wanted buco bucks. And they were like, all right, well, we're not going to waste our time with tagging you. We're just going to let you walk.
Seattle seems like they can find a way to fill that position pretty consistently.
I don't know. It's been very, very hit and miss ever since Marshawn left. And it looked like Chris Carson was going to be the answer.
Well, then I know Pete Carroll is declaring that he wants to run the ball more.
This is why it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So who are you going to have run the ball? because Rashad Penny's not going to stay healthy the whole year.
No,
that's definitely not.
He's not even that good to begin with.
You can bring back Marshawn Lynch again, I guess, if you want to do that.
I don't think he'll come back.
But if you don't have Russell Wilson and you don't have a good running game, this offense is
you have no identity.
Here's what you do if you're Seattle, in my opinion. You do what you did with Chris Carson. You let him go because you're not going to pay him a big contract. And you give Russ what he wants. You get him one of the top receivers on the market, and you pay him. So he's got DK and him, and do what you can to bolster that offensive line and let Russ cook. Just let him do it and make him happy. Stop all the trade talks. He's the only reason that you guys are going to be competitive, like in the NFC East and like the bigger
West.
picture. Right. Yeah. Sorry. The NFC West.
Yeah. It seems like, from what Pete Carroll's saying, they're not going to let Russ cook, and that's why he wants out. With this move, I really don't know what they're doing to be competitive in the West. And maybe they're like, you know what? Let's just take a back seat for a couple of years. Let's regain our bearings.
Like 70. He can't do that at this point in his career. I mean,
he's in great shape for 70.
He is. He does not appear to be as old as he is, but he's presumably in the last decade of his coaching career. You'd have to think. So
maybe they're like, let's take a back seat for 2 or 3 years and then really make a push. And, maybe by that point, the West has died down a little bit, because to win that division is going to be a battle. And right now, Seattle can't win that.
But we always say this about them. We always say, oh, well, the Rams added this guy, the Cardinals drafted Kyler Murray, 49ers just made the Super Bowl. Like, how is Seahawks going to stand a chance? And they always wiggle their way into the playoffs. They always figure it out. And Russ is the biggest part of that. Average running game and no Russ, not going to work.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, there's no way they're going to take a back seat when they got Russ.
Right.
But maybe when they deal him,
we'll see.
They're like, let's take a back seat for a while. Now we get into a touchy subject. 2 players that weren't tagged, Kenny Galladay and Romeo Okwara, probably 2 of the biggest Lions players that we've had on the team in the last couple of years.
Biggest young, talented Lions players.
Absolutely.
In a talent-poor team.
Yeah. It sucks to see Kenny go, because now the wide receiving core is decimated, and Goff will have basically nobody to throw to.
Tyrell Williams.
Awesome.
I have to say that jokingly. I have to say that optimistically.
Yeah. Like, who knows what he can do? Who knows what? Diverging the conversation a little bit, maybe this opens the door for them taking a wide receiver at 8 this year, which I don't support, but it could be worse.
I don't support it just from the angle of, what did we just do? We traded away Darius Slay and drafted Okudah, and that did not work out.
Be working out.
It's just a 1-for-1. It cancels each other out. It's not really improving the team.
Yeah.
I am sad to see Kenny Galladay go, because he has been. We kind of touched about last week. We talked about Bob Quinn's draft history, that he's been a stud. Mm-hmm. He's gotten better every single year, and when he's in the Lions offense, they're different. And without him, they're much, much harder to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm sad to see him go, but I do support the move. Yeah. I think it's the wrong decision right now in a team that we are ripping this thing down to the studs.
Yeah.
I think it is a bad decision to have a guy who reportedly wanted $20 million a year for 5 years. $100 million contract is what he was seeking. He was offered, I think, around 18 was the report. So you're going to be tied to that contract for the next 5 years on a team that optimistically is going to win 2 to 3 games next year, and who knows what after.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it. He's probably going to get the biggest contract of receivers on the market of this free agency.
Yeah. He's probably top name wide receiver on the free agent market now. So yeah, I agree. It sucks. It really hurts to see him go, because he has been like a staple of our offense throughout his time here. But at the same time, I kind of agree with it. if we're ripping this thing down to the studs, there's really no point in us paying him, $20 million a year to be on a team that has absolutely no shot of going anywhere.
Could you imagine if Bob Quinn had actually gotten him to resign?
That would have been interesting.
Like what bad of a situation that actually would be for our cap if he had stuck around, and we'd have him, but it would not be a good fit for what we're trying to do right now.
I don't think so either.
And I feel, to jump to Romeo, I kind of feel the same about it. I don't think he's going to command top market value like Kenny Galladay.
I don't think so, especially in a free agent market where there are a lot of big name end rushers.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not as versed as who all is available right now, but I know that he's a young, intriguing defensive end, and he's had some flashes on a bad defense, and he was arguably our best defensive player last year.
Arguably is putting it in a nice way. He was by far. He was the only player that would record sacks on our team.
So maybe he's a little different than Galladay in the sense that you probably didn't need to pay a top market contract to keep him around, but
probably not.
He's also in that window where he's got to go get paid now because he's I think in his prime of his career, so he's got to go make
coming
money.
off a great season. Can't franchise tag him because I don't think he's worth the average of top 5 defensive end salaries. So in that aspect, I agree with not franchise tagging him. I do wish they would have re-signed him because I think that we could have got him for a decent price and a key defensive lineman.
Well, weird rumor that's popping up is that we're being connected to Trey Hendrickson from the Saints, who plays the same position, and I think he's like a year older, and we're going to pay him a big contract, but not Romeo. So I'll say this one last thing about Romeo and Kenny. They will both dearly be missed here.
Absolutely.
They're the two of the highlights of a really talent-poor team, and I wish them both the best. I think they're both going to get paid well, and it'd be cool to see Kenny reunite with Stafford in LA or something like that. That'd be kind of fun. I don't think that's going to happen, but it definitely leaves us worse for wear with them leaving, but it's kind of a necessary evil.
And on the positive side, I mean, we probably will get a 3rd-round pick for him.
Yeah, compensatory pick sounds like if all goes well. So
yeah, we edited out a part of this where we were arguing whether or not we got a 3rd-round pick, and it turns out I was wrong. So
Lucas likes to think that I don't know what I'm talking about, so he just had to go Google and stop the whole flow of the show.
You're 50-50. Okay.
Good thing we started a football podcast.
Yeah. Let's switch over to the topical segment. All right, now switching over to our topical weekly segment, I'm going to run Al through a list of 10 free agents that I think are probably 10 of the biggest free agents this offseason and propose a fake salary that I'm basing off of their age, the season they're coming off of, and average salary in that position.
Keeping in theme with all the news this week. I like it.
Yes, absolutely. So first player, offensive lineman Trent Williams. Trent Williams was on the Redskins for a large football team for a large majority of his career. He was traded to San Francisco last season, played 14 games, coming off an injury. He is, I think, around 31, 32. So my proposed salary is 3 years, $60 million deal.
Wow. Okay, that's a
he's one of the best tackles in the game, though. Arguably the best tackle in the game.
Okay, that's a really surprising number. You're saying he's a top tackle, which I think is accurate.
With that deal, he's probably, I think, either 2nd or 3rd highest paid tackle in the league behind Bakhtiari. Considering age and coming off an injury.
I'm going to be a little edgy here and say, no, I'm not going to do that. And here's why. He, for several years now, has had pretty significant injuries. Okay. The reason that he was out of football for a year, the year before this one.
Yeah.
Washington
sat out.
Washington would not help him out with some injury stuff going on. I guess it was improperly handled, to say the least, which is part of the reason that he requested a trade and got moved to the San Francisco 49ers. How did he do stat-wise last year?
Not bad. I don't think he gave up any sacks or anything like that.
So, well, that's pretty good if he didn't give up any sacks.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a situation where you're one of those pieces away from having an elite offensive line, I guess maybe. But if I'm a GM, I'm a little weary of a guy who's going to be top of the market price, who's a little bit on the older side, and has a significant injury history. That's kind of where my head's at on it.
I would agree with that. I think there will be a team that will pay him that, possibly even more, to be honest.
You even think in this year where the salary cap is what it is. Because we're recording this in 2021, the salary cap
just took a dip.
It took a dip because of last year's COVID epidemic. So, I think it's a pretty rich contract for him. Yeah.
Next player, Yannick Ngakoue. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
No, that's good.
Yeah, 2-year, $48 million deal. The reason I'm doing 2 years is because he bounced around a lot last year. He started out on the Jacksonville Jaguars, moved to Minnesota, and then got traded to Baltimore.
He's still pretty young too.
He is pretty young, and he is coming off a 8-sack season with 2 different teams, which
I'm going to pay him.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I would pay him. He's it's a little concerning that he's bounced around this much. I don't know. Maybe it's not a reflection of him at all. I don't know. Wanting out of Jacksonville doesn't really seem like an unreasonable demand, to be honest with you. But no, it's a lot of production. He's really young. The number for only 2 years is kind of the only red flag I have with the situation, just because, isn't he the kind of guy you would want to lock up for 4 years, 5 years, because he is the age he is, and he could be like a cornerstone piece. Like a 2-year deal is good for him because he can go hit the market again.
I would assume that's possibly what he's looking for.
But if I'm a team and I'm looking to build a young defensive line with him as a cornerstone, I'm looking to be like, okay, you're a 4 to 5 year piece and a legit part of this plan, which was, I think, what the Vikings were thinking when they traded for him, because they've got a pretty old and crusty defense at this point. So they're probably thinking adding a young guy like him would be a nice place to start. But obviously it didn't work out there.
Yeah. What was I about to say?
Is Baltimore interested in re-signing him or no?
I don't think so. Which is also shocking. I don't know why so many teams are passing up on him. I think if he is to take a 4 or 5 year deal, that you're going to be paying even more than that 2-year, $48 million deal, which
That's
is
the only way he'll
pretty high for a yearly salary. That's pretty high for a defensive lineman.
Okay, so if the question is, as a GM, would I do the deal at what it is, 2 years?
Let's say, you come to the table with like a 5-year, $125 million deal, and he counters with the 2-year, $48 million deal.
It depends on what team I am, but if you're looking for his services, I think you're going to take him any way you can. So who knows? Maybe after 2 years, he's had great 2 years. And he can just extend
that's the game you play.
I would do it.
Bud Dupree, another edge rusher, 4-year, $105 million deal.
I can say, as the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would not do this.
No,
because they're one of those teams that always seems like they're pretty easy to fill their linebacker spots. They kind of always have next man up mentality that I've noticed. So I don't think you need to pay him that. I think he will get that, like a CJ Mosley did with like the Jets or something. Like he just got a bag of money. That's the kind of situation it strikes me as. But if I'm another team, if I'm just a GM of a team and I'm looking for his services,
he's going to be 28. So you get him, 28 to 32.
I don't know. What do you think?
Probably load up that front portion of it, so that a majority of his cap hit is taking place while he's still relatively young.
So if he hits the 30 wall and like he starts to fall off, you can cut him.
Yeah, you can cut him, or you're not too worried about him taking up cap space.
I don't know what I would do in the situation. What do you?
I think I would. I'd probably pay him. I think he has had an opportunity to shine on a very good defense.
Yeah.
So that's you got to roll the dice there, because a lot of times players succeed in the position that they're put in.
Because that kind of contract is like, you're going to come in here and you're going to
be a game changer.
Defense.
Yeah,
that's not I'm a rotational piece. Not that he is that in Pittsburgh, but it's not going to be like you're saying. He's not going to be surrounded by a TJ Watt and a bunch of other loaded defensive pieces.
Yeah, so. I mean, like, does he have the career that he has if he's on the Lions?
No,
probably not. No, but I would take the chance on him. I think he's still young. He is a proven good defensive player and a good linebacker / edge rusher.
But is that contract a good or great?
That's a great contract.
So
which I would still offer him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Next on the list, Jonnu Smith, 3-year, $40 million contract.
He was like the tight end fantasy darling last year. Yeah. I remember going into fantasy, so I tried very hard to get him, and I did. And he was, at least from a fantasy perspective, he was monstrously inconsistent. There were some games where he would have 25 points and have a really nice afternoon, and then other games where he just was a scratch. He didn't do anything.
I think he's one of the only tight ends to ever have a 200-yard game.
That's such a Titan stat.
Yeah,
it is. Like they got Derrick Henry experience and all this stuff. What was the money again?
3-year, $40 million deal.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, I believe George Kittle's the highest paid tight end. He's making around 17 a year.
I think I'd do that if I'm a New England or someone like that. If I'm a team where it's a piece that would put our offense in over the top, I think he's done enough to get a contract. That seems that seems like a rich contract, I guess, but
he's probably more along the lines of looking for probably 3-year, 45 to 50, if I'm being honest, because he was a top tight end last year. So he's probably looking for top 3 money. 45 would put him, I think, top 3 in terms of that.
The thing about it, though, with free agency and this position's getting top money for whatever, you just said George Kittle's deal. That deal's going to be antiquated in a year. It's not. It's going to be it was a top of the market deal when he signed. Yeah. Jonnu Smith could be a top 3 tight end contract wise this coming year, but in 2 years it might just be a top 10 tight end contract. Yeah. That's just the nature of these things. We're in a little bit of a weird time right now with free agency because the cap is going down. So this seems like a luxury signing.
Yeah.
And if you're a team that just needs that piece and you're really going to focus on that and you feel like you can make it work and he could be a valuable part of your offense, then yeah, I would pay it. But I'm trying to think. I don't know of a lot of teams who that would really be a piece that they're we definitely need this. I can't think of very many.
And now that I'm thinking about it, comparing him to a top 3 contract where it's him, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, he's light years away from those two.
This contract to me feels like a Zach Ertz kind of deal. That's Zach Ertz is a name brand beast. He can be a top 3 tight end at times. He can't be. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of money I would pay him. Jonnu Smith, it's a luxury buy. If you can do it, cool. But
yeah, I would agree with that. Aaron Jones, 5-year, $75 million deal.
Absolutely not. No. We talked about on the top of the show that he is a very versatile running back, and he definitely is a huge weapon to add to an offense. But that contract, that's a ton of money to invest in a running back.
Let me see. He is coming off a very good year.
years. He's had a couple good years in a row now.
It's the same exact deal as Alvin Kamara.
No. I think Alvin Kamara is special, like top 3. I think Aaron Jones is top 5 or 6. He's floating around there, but if that's the comparison, then I'd take Alvin Kamara over Aaron Jones 9 times out of 10.
That's fair.
So I think that's a crazy amount to invest in him. I don't know. I can see for him why he would want that, but
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I suppose I wouldn't do that either. That is a tough contract to give a running back.
It's similar to Jonnu. I can't think of a team off the top of my head where it makes a ton of sense to pay someone that much money to put your offense over the top. There are a ton of good places that he could land and he would be a great fit, but I don't know if there are a ton of places that he could land that are willing to spend $75 million over 5 years on him and his services. How old is he? He's 20.
He's pretty young.
Okay.
He's let's see.
Not always like making it an age thing, but with running back, he's
about to turn 27.
That's not very young.
I mean,
that's like you're in your
window. Yeah,
you're in your window.
Exactly.
No, I wouldn't. No.
What about 5-year?
5 at 60 is the highest I would go with.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'm not comparing that to any other contracts right now. That's a number I'm just throwing out there. That just feels like a better number to me.
Touched on him a little bit earlier. Shaq Barrett, 5-year, $125 million deal.
Yeah, I'd pay him.
Yeah, I think he is one of those guys that deserves a great contract and is a game changer on defense.
He's been a baller the last few years. So if you're a team that's competing, even if you're a team that's not competing, anyone can use Shaq Barrett.
Yeah.
And I think
you do run into that same thought process though with Bud Dupree, where he's thrived on a great defense.
True.
In a great system.
But whereas Bud Dupree, the jury's out on that. I think Shaq Barrett has at least a better track record and like shot at being a like wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Despite whatever he's around.
Yeah.
So
he can go thrive on the Lions.
Yeah. I would pay him.
Yeah.
I would pay him. I think that's a good contract.
AJ Green, 2-year, $34 million deal.
Why don't you start with this one?
No, I wouldn't pay him that.
Okay, because I was going to shoot it down immediately, but I wanted to see if you had the same reaction.
Yeah. $17 million a year for AJ Green, who
it's basically on one foot. I don't know if
he's healthy.
He's on 1 foot at this point.
I don't know. That is a lot to pay. Like I could see Seattle paying him that money. I could see that.
This is not what I was saying when you should go out and add a spicy receiver for Russ to cook with. That's not what I was saying.
He's big name. How old is he? Big name. He's had some very questionable seasons last year. It's clear as day that he doesn't want to be on the Bengals anymore. So, I mean, maybe he's like, Randy Moss leaving the Raiders and goes to the Patriots and has a historic season.
The only difference being that Randy Moss didn't have an enormous injury question mark leaving and going into New England.
He's also he's going to be 33. So you're getting him 33 to like 35.
I think
pretty old for a wide receiver.
I think it makes sense if you're like Green Bay.
Yeah.
Or someone you just need more targets and you have a little bit of that money.
That's why I can see this happening. Like him probably getting out a little bit more than what he's worth. And it's because he's going to a team that is on the brink of being a contender and just needs another person to line up and take heat off a Devontae Adams, a DK Metcalf. Just be a solid wide receiver too.
The question is, if I'm a GM, am I going to make him that offer? I'm not going to make him that offer.
No. And
I think someone could, but I wouldn't.
I could see myself in a GM role where, I really need somebody to be a wide receiver one and taking that chance with him.
You know who
I'm not going over 2 years.
I'm a homer, but I would much rather pay Marvin Jones than pay
Absolutely.
AJ Green.
Yeah.
And Marvin is he's had a better last 2 years than AJ Green.
Yeah, absolutely.
AJ Green, the last his career, you can sum up to potentially, if he has a nice renaissance here, he could be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Like he's been that good. But I think he's just washed. I think it's going to be one of those 2-year deals where he signs a 2-year deal, but really it's like a 1-year deal, and like they kind of let's see how it goes.
Team option on the second year.
Yep. So that's kind of where I think his value's at. I think some team will be desperate enough to do it, but if I were a GM, no, I would not do it.
I see him getting that deal though. I really do. All right, interesting one. Patrick Peterson. I can't read my handwriting sometimes. 3-year, $55 million deal.
He's another guy who's kind of in a similar situation as AJ Green, except he's not coming off a horrific injury or anything. I think just the production has kind of fallen off for him.
Absolutely.
So that's a lot of money to pay to a corner that you would assume you would want.
Established name.
A very established name. He's been a very, very good cornerback in the NFL. I think that's money you pay to someone that you want to come in and be your CB1 though, or CB2.
Anywhere he goes, he's probably gonna be CB1. There's a lot of teams that he would go to where he would be CB1. Very few where he would go and not be.
We kind of talked about with J.J. Watt last week, where we could foresee him potentially just playing with his hair on fire when he gets to Arizona for the first few games. Patrick Peterson strikes me as that same kind of deal because this isn't like he's leaving right now, but there were reports that he wanted to trade out of there last year, and or maybe it was the year before. He's been wanting a fresh start for a while, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So he could get a nice contract and ball out and really be a CB1 for at least a year and see where it goes after. But that's a pretty rich contract for a guy who's edging towards. He's closer to the end than the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm probably not doing it. I'm kind of just leaning towards any of these older guys that want a huge deal. Maybe I'm being biased here, but I'm kind of leaning more towards no. I like a Yannick Ngakoue who is right in his prime, young, like proven commodity. That's a dude I'm going to give a max contract to.
That's what all these older guys are basing it off of. It's the name,
Patrick Peterson, I'm going to say no as well.
All right, some more wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, 4-year, $80 million deal.
TikTok dances included?
Yes. That's why I'm saying no. I don't want him dancing on my opponent's midfield logo.
I've seen some comments on Instagram and stuff like make that a part of the contract, but he can't do that anymore, which I kind of agree with. That'd be pretty smart.
I'm 100% putting it in the contract.
Yeah, I like him. He's a guy, like I was just saying with Ngakoue. He's right in his prime, and he's a proven commodity.
That's a wide receiver 1 contract, without a doubt.
The question with him is he a wide receiver 1?
Absolutely.
And that's been the question in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
The last year or two.
I mean, yeah, he especially this past year, he really lost that status, I feel like.
When AB left, they're like, all right, Juju, you're up.
And he filled that role.
For a bit, he did.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Kind of fell off.
Yeah.
So
with the arrival of new talent, Chase Claypool, I can't remember the other guys' names, but they had like a sensational wide receiving core, young wide receiving core this past year.
Here's the thing with Pittsburgh and wide receivers, similarly to linebackers, they're very good at finding people to fill that role. So I think any Pittsburgh wide receiver who leaves Pittsburgh is probably going to be pretty good on another team. Maybe not elite. Yeah, but I think that he could be a wide receiver 1. He's still so young. He's like 23 or something. He's still like
he's very young.
He's got a lot of time ahead of him. So if you surround him with a couple other pieces but he's like the clear-cut 1, I think that's a pretty interesting signing. I would consider it if I was a team who like the Bears. Like I'm really receiver poor. Him and A-Rob together, like that's a solid combo.
Very good.
And that's really appealing for Russell. So I would say, yeah, if I was a GM, I would consider it. He's he aligns with the things that I would want in a wide receiver on the market.
Mm-hmm. All right, last one. Will Fuller, I think he's the fifth, maybe the fourth. 5-year, $105 million deal.
Absolutely not.
No.
Nope. The dude never stays healthy. He's last year had some PED stuff going on.
Oh,
so
true. Forgot about that.
There's questions there. No, I don't. That's a lot of money to pour into that resource when you have a Juju out there, you have a Marvin Jones, you have a Kenny Galladay, you have those guys out there. They seem like all safer bets to me than Will Fuller, who I legit don't think he's completed a season. I legitimately think he hasn't.
Well, now we got to look it up. I don't know. Yeah, a tough decision. I mean, he's had some sensational flashes.
Has he though?
Yeah, absolutely. He's had some really good games.
And is that when he was with Hopkins?
That's when he was with Hopkins. So that was the thing, like coming into last season, you think he's going to be number one. You are right. He has not finished. No, he's never played a 16-game season.
So how on earth can you pay that guy $100 million to play?
Well, it's over a 5-year span. So, I mean, like on average, he's making roughly a little bit over 20.
I'm looking for cheaper options at that point.
I mean, that's fair.
Here's how negative I am on that, Lucas. I'd rather pay AJ Green than pay Will Fuller.
that 2-year, $34 million
I would take that in a heartbeat over Will Fuller. Yeah,
that's fair.
You're in bed with that guy for 5 years, and he's not completed one NFL season.
Yeah, he's actually, you know what, now that I'm looking at it, that guy, that was a horrible deal on my part. He hasn't had a 1,000-yard season. He hasn't had over 10 touchdowns. And he hasn't completed a season.
Last year in Houston, when they traded away not Deshaun Watson, they should do that. DeAndre Hopkins, when they traded him away, that would have been his window to step in and say, hey, I'm a number one.
Which, I mean, he did have a career year.
I got Deshaun Watson throwing me the ball. I can be number one guy, and I can stay healthy and play. And that offense was pretty bad for the most part. That team was pretty bad for the most part.
I think somebody will take a shot on him and pay him a contract that's probably like a like, God help us, like we're really hoping you are what we think you are, and lets him flourish.
Do you have a team that you think that would do that? I'm having a hard time even matching someone with him. God, like maybe in New England or something.
Possibly, but New England.
Bill seems like he wouldn't
pay that money. I'm trying to think. Maybe I could see the Jets doing that.
Yeah, they're all about those kind of moves.
Yeah.
I keep linking the Bears to receivers because they need help.
I can see the Bears doing it.
Yeah, bottom line, no, though. Yeah. That's a hard no for me.
I can see Carolina doing it.
Yeah. If they got Deshaun Watson, they could have a nice little reunion there.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, those are 10 free agents we were kind of playing around with the thoughts. I'm really interested to see now what these guys actually get paid and how close I was on their contract.
Let's go! Lions!
All right. So as we talked about on the top of the show, this week's Lions discussion is going to revolve around the hiring of new head coach Dan Campbell and new general manager Brad Holmes. Brad Sherlock Holmes, as Matt Derry of the Locked On Lions podcast as him too.
Some great nicknames for the two of them coming out of these last couple of weeks.
I see you're pretty hot on Metallica Dan.
I love that one.
I'm more of a fan of the Danimal.
Danimal's good. Motor City Dan.
I like Motor City
that
Dan.
one.
Yeah. So just right off the top, I think his press conference is a meme at this point.
Talking about Dan Campbell's opening press conference.
Yeah.
I liked it for probably about 2 minutes and then got really sick of it.
It is such a stark contrast compared to Matt Patricia.
You think so?
Yeah. Not only him, just the energy of them.
The both. Energy and everything completely different. What he was saying was similar.
Sure.
It was, we need to go to work. We need to grab our lunch pail. We need to pull up our bootstraps.
That's the Motor City,
exactly.
Way
it's coach talk and coach speak, and that's why I didn't like it after 2 minutes, because we've heard it before, we've heard it numerous times. The energy, though, fantastic. That.
The thing that I like the most that I've heard from both of these guys to begin with, and I think this is kind of a divisive direction that the franchise is going, but I like the fact that they're talking about how much of a collaborative effort this new regime is, whereas the last regime was Bob, I'm the smartest man in the room, Quinn, and Matt, I'm not going to adjust my defense. I coached a Super Bowl winning defense, Patricia.
Yeah.
So these two guys who were total blowhards and will not change their way of thinking at all, whereas the new guys seem very open to outside opinion and getting the opinion of their whole staff and of Chris Spielman and people who have been in the NFL. Like they hired a staff around them that is full of experienced people. And I get such a, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid right now because I'm getting a more positive feeling about the direction that this thing is headed just from the two of them alone, the limited stuff we've seen so far.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to kind of start going into their background, or do you want to?
Let's start with their deals. The thing that really sticks out with these deals is that it's not a John Gruden, 10-year deal where it's just he's John Gruden, we got to give him whatever he wants. But they have a long leash, it looks like here, and they're going to need time to make this thing work. So they kind of need to have the first couple of years be a mulligan almost. So these deals might sound like a long time on paper when you read it, but I think they make sense for the spot that we're in, knowing that, hey, we're going to have to gut this thing and like we're going to have to start from ground zero. The first 2 years are going to be pretty painful. So let's see what kind of flashes we can find with them early on and build on it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, like this is kind of negative thinking, but what year do we start to bring out the pitchforks?
3.
3?
Yeah, 3. Because the first 2 years we're going to assume are going to be a Jared Goff trial run and rebuilding a defense, a semblance of a defense, and just getting as many lottery tickets to the draft as we can, which Brad Holmes has done a phenomenal job of so far. Really good. But we need time for those younger players they draft to have some reps and develop, and they can bring in their players that they choose. They're going to need at least 2 years for that. So if you're not seeing any progress after 3, then I think that's when the pitchforks come out. And think about it this way. The pitchforks were coming out for Matt Patricia after year 1 because he was brought in and told us that he was going to be he's the next step on an already good team.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now this situation, and he made it 3 years. Yeah. Patricia and Quinn made it 5, and Patricia made
Quinn
3.
made 5. Yeah, Patricia made 3.
So they had that much time when they ruined everything.
Yeah.
These guys are going in the basement level.
Yeah.
So you got to at least give them 3.
Yeah.
At least.
So what are your expectations for year 3? How many wins?
I think that's too hard to predict right now.
Yeah.
In theory, we should be a 9-7, 8-8.
Okay, I was going to say my bar is 8 wins in year 3.
That should be the basement where we should be at.
And to cut them some slack, I'll even say I wouldn't mind 7. I don't want 6. 6 is like my cutoff. I think 7 is like a gray area where I'm like, okay, they can come back for another year. 8 is like, okay. I think there's something cooking. Is
it reasonable to say our baseline for next year is 2 wins?
Yeah.
And every year we double it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I see the roadmap here. So those are their contracts. A little bit about their backgrounds. I know that Dan Campbell, his main coaching experience kind of sample size is from when he was the interim head coach of the Miami Dolphins the year that they fired Joe Philbin during the season. And they actually won some games for him. They rallied behind him, and he seems like a very rah-rah, high energy, I'm going to have my guys play for me. And they seem like they like him a lot. There's been a lot of positive quotes to come out about him from former players that you got a good guy. So
it's also, initial reaction was interesting because a lot of people picked Robert Saleh. Did I pronounce his last name?
Yes. Yep.
A lot of people picked him to be the next one.
Right.
And, reports came out that he didn't have a good interview. He then goes on to sign with the Jets. So a lot of people were looking forward to him. He had a phenomenal career as a defensive coordinator in San Francisco. And I don't think a lot of people pegged Dan Campbell to be named the next head coach.
I don't think at the start of the process he was even a name anyone was talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that his time in New Orleans working under Sean Payton as a tight ends coach, I think that plus the stint he had in Miami, I think bolstered his name maybe in league circles. And it just wasn't something that the public was kind of like privy to.
Keeping his eye on him, yeah.
Right. So Robert Saleh seemed like it was going to happen inevitably. We were even talking about during the season, we were already campaigning for him. So even local state government people were petitioned. They wrote a letter to the Lions saying, "Would you please consider bringing Robert Saleh here?" So that seemed like the direction that they were going to go. But Sheila Ford Hamp put together a bit of a committee. Again, this whole sort of collaborative approach to building this new regime, and that's the name they came away with, and they got a lot of solid football minds in that committee now. So I do trust it.
The other shocking aspect of the hiring was, I think a lot of people were expecting either new head coach, experienced GM, or experienced head coach, new GM.
Considering what we just came off of.
And they went with the surprising aspect of new GM, new head coach. And that kind of, segues into the hiring of Brad Holmes, who had no GM experience and was, I think, a draft evaluator for the Rams.
Yeah, they're in their scouting department. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another very shocking hire. But initially, it kind of leaves not a great taste in your mouth, kind of like, I don't know. But then, you kind of sit back and you start to realize hindsight's 2020. He's made some good moves so far. But, you look at his credibility, the guy drafted a lot of the Rams players that are on that team right now. And
he also was a big voice in why they drafted Jared Goff back in the day.
Well, yeah, and that's
Brad Holmes.
Goff's had some good seasons. Goff's had some bad seasons.
Okay, so Dan Campbell, I think the jury's out. We've seen some stuff that is good, and he's said some interesting things, and his energy's been probably the best aspect of him coming here. However, I think that Brad Holmes, you can already evaluate and say that he is doing a very good job as our new GM.
He's had some good steps. So some very positive steps.
I really, truly feel like at this point, it's still very early in his tenure, but he has done everything the right way so far. He traded Matthew Stafford and got 2 first-round picks and a starting quarterback in exchange. He understands where we're at in the rebuild process very clearly, and I think he had to have pitched that to ownership to even get in the door.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're already coming into this next draft with more capital and a clear game plan, and he's playing the game the right way, as they say, when it comes to playing the quarterback game. Last year with Bob Quinn, we had the number 3 overall pick, and it was clear as day we're not taking a quarterback. So no one called us to try and trade for the pick.
And as much as the media was pushing it, nobody believed it.
Right. And this time, Brad Holmes, he just got his guy in Jared Goff, and personally, I think that's where they're going to roll the dice with this next year at least. He's just at Trey Lance's pro day, like the other day.
He said we're not ruling out a quarterback.
He's doing everything the right way so far. He's been cutting players with bad contracts right now, realizing that we need to gut this thing, and I am in love with every move that he's made. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid hard on him. Dan Campbell, we'll see. Jury's out. I like the guy, and I like the energy, but we'll see. This is going to be a bad team. So
yeah, obviously you're referring to the cuts that were made this past week with Justin Coleman and Jesse James, right? That's his name.
Yeah, Coleman and Jesse James.
Yeah, I don't know why I had a double take on Jesse James, but
and our boy Christian Jones.
And
no
Christian
longer
Jones, holy shit. You make that cut. That was the first cut, and that shows Brad Holmes knows what he's doing.
Yep.
Because that was a horrendous deal.
Yeah. Horrible
extension.
Chase Daniels reportedly on the block, and they tried to see if they could get anything, but he'll probably just get the axe, I think.
Probably. Justin Coleman, super unfortunate, I think. When he came in, he was regarded as the top slot cornerback in the league. And for that first year, he was a difference maker, in my opinion. He was good. And then, unfortunately, injuries took its toll. He did not have a good season when he was on the field this past year.
No one did. No one did on the defense.
Yeah, nobody really did. So he goes, which looking at it, the contract was huge. He was one of the top paid cornerbacks in the league. And then the cutting of Trufant as well, getting rid of him is also a sign, the guy can't stay healthy. It seems like a good cut. And on top of that, Jesse James, who at the time, the signing didn't make any sense once we drafted TJ Hawkinson.
Correct. I was going to say, when we did sign him,
it was like, okay.
We have a tight end. Good.
Yeah. And then we drafted TJ Hawkinson 8th overall. So then it was like, why in God's name are we paying Jesse James as much as we are when we just took a tight end 8th overall?
Jesse James was an absolutely horrible signing.
Yeah.
And nothing against the guy. And he actually flashed a bit when he was in Pittsburgh. But
I don't think he's a bad player.
I don't either. But like you're saying, it made no sense. We drafted a tight end in the top 10. That's going to be the guy you rally around. And I'm sure from Jesse James' perspective, he's probably like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I just signed here for 3 years, and you draft a guy in the top 10 to basically one-up me.
Yeah.
Like, why am I even here? And he was basically relegated to a blocking tight end his first year. He got a little bit more involved in the passing game last year, but just a horrible signing.
And to the point that the Lions' offensive, game plan, it didn't involve the tight end. It really hasn't. Like last year, Hawk got way more involved, and it showed that he can be, tight end number one and a good one. But before that, like, they just didn't know how to use tight ends. Like, they could not get them involved in the passing game. And so that was just such a stupid signing. So good on Brad Holmes for cutting him as well. And he'll probably go on to play at another team and make somewhat of a difference, hopefully be the tight end one. If not, that's horrible because we basically just took that guy's career and put it in the dump.
The thing that is really like poignant already in this next era of Lions football, as I was saying, with the collaborative kind of feel of it, is that the moves that they've been making so far when it comes to dealing Stafford, which we're going to touch on in next week's show a little bit more. But when it comes to that move, which was arguably the biggest trade in franchise history, and cutting these guys that were bad contracts and making, letting Kenny Golladay walk away, even though he's a fan favorite, doing these kind of things, these are not moves that the Lions have traditionally made as a franchise. They usually just say, hey, we got to get asses in the seats. Let's just put the best team in front of Stafford that we can and make a run and see what we can do. This is the first time since I've been a fan that I've seen them actually step back, say, hey, we're in a really bad spot. Let's just clean it up and let's just start over. And I've very rarely seen everyone kind of aligned on the same page. So it's really refreshing to see. And it's a really, right now, we haven't played a single game.
Yeah.
So it's all sunshine and roses right now. It's going to be a tough next year or two. And who knows onward. But
let's pivot over to Dan Campbell and the moves that he's made. And by that, we mean
his staff,
the staff that he brought in. So I think two notable ones right out the gate were Deuce Staley, the running backs head coach, who I had never heard of personally, but from what I've gathered, he was the running backs coach for the Philadelphia Eagles and is a very renowned running backs coach.
Reportedly, they were hot to trot to try and keep him in Philly, and they were really trying to not let him walk, and the Lions somehow scooped him up. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I know the name has some flair to it in the league. I don't really know a lot about the dude, but when you think of Philly, you think of at least a solid running game most years. I mean, right now their backfield's kind of a question mark, but
huge.
Yeah, they're always pretty solid.
Yeah. So that one was a good one.
For Swift, I like it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like our running back core right now, obviously DeAndre Swift is great. Kerryon has shown in previous years that he can do something, maybe not at the same level as Swift, but if he can be a good RB2, that's phenomenal. Defensive side, one notable signing that I thought was awesome, and I'm so excited for it, the Bears linebacker coach.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but again, you look at what that guy's built.
Roquan Smith, Khalil Mack,
they have talent and they know how to use it there. And so you obviously can point to that guy as to why that linebacking core is so good. And praise be the Lord, maybe we can start to turn things around with our linebacking core and just turn it into not as big of a joke.
This is only episode 2 of the show, but I've already noticed how hot and heavy you are to get good linebackers on this team.
I really want them to address the linebacking core. That is first and foremost on my list.
What do you think about the offensive and defensive coordinator hires so far? We have Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator, who was previously just last year the head coach of the LA Chargers, and at defensive coordinator we have Aaron Glenn, who is I believe he's the secondary coach from the Saints coming over, who has a connection to Dan Campbell.
Yeah. So I like Anthony Lynn. I really do. I think that was a good hire. That offense, he came across as somebody who could call a good game, but when it came to finishing and
dagger time,
certain head coaching things, he didn't really get it. So I think that is a great hire. I think that he will be able to call a good game. The other side, coming off the Quintricia era, hiring somebody that you're from the team that you're coming from isn't extremely appealing, but at the same time, totally two different areas.
But I think in today's NFL, or even before we were fans, I think that's kind of common.
It probably is.
I think us doing the whole New England North thing was a bit overkill. Not a bit. It was overkill. But whenever you start a new regime, especially if it's guys like Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes who are fresh faces in this, they're going to go and get guys who they're comfortable with and they've worked with before.
Yeah.
And it makes sense if they can land those people to put them there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't worry me too much. Obviously, when you read it on paper, like right away, you're like, oh, shit, here we go again. But taking a step back and reevaluating the signing, I don't hate it. The Saints DBs have been good over the past couple of years. I think that's a good signing. I believe Antoine Randall is our wide receivers coach. Guy who is extremely experienced, had a good career in the NFL. He's young. So I think that's a great signing. I think that the staff that
he might have to suit up and come play. Actually, I know Dan Campbell made that joke on the Pat McAfee show, but Antoine might actually have to come and play some snaps.
So I think that they're putting together a young staff, but I'm excited for that. I think that the staff that they're putting around them is going to be really good.
It's the sexiest offseason signing of staff that I've ever witnessed as a Lions fan from that perspective. Yeah. And also they made some really interesting front office additions as well.
It's a big one, and you and I are so big on this guy, and I am so unbelievably happy they brought him in, John Dorsey.
I remember we were talking,
really pulling for him to become GM.
Right. We were talking about it. We were headed to the sports book one afternoon, and we were just talking about Lions stuff. And I remembered that I was like, hey, man, my dream when this thing's over is just bring John Dorsey in as the GM, and let's get Robert Saleh, and let's fly. Those two are going to be studs. Because John Dorsey has made moves to get Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes. He's got a solid.
For people who don't know, he's basically drafted the entire Chiefs team and then left and then went to go build out the Browns team that is now a playoff contender, possible Super Bowl contender.
So it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Obviously, there's a reason that he was available for hire. And,
Yeah.
There's a reason that didn't work out with those teams. Apparently, sometimes he's been kind of hard to work with. But hey, they're putting guys there who are experienced and they've done good things in the NFL. And in such an important time where we are going to have to draft the next QB of the future if Jared Goff doesn't work out, or we're going to, regardless, just have to keep adding young talent through the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What a bonus it is to have a great evaluator of talent like that.
I mean, I just think it's so sensational. I'm so unbelievably happy about that. John Dorsey kind of, in similar aspect, reminds me of Anthony Lynn, where he did a lot of things right, but just a couple of things wrong.
Just enough to lose his job.
Just enough to lose his job. So, like in referencing his time at Cleveland, one of the biggest, just absolutely boneheaded moves was Hugh Jackson.
Right.
And I think that led to him, kind of getting the can out of Cleveland. But before he did, he put together a good team.
Well, sorry. I think Hugh Jackson was a boneheaded decision, but I think the one that got him can out of Cleveland was Freddie Kitchens.
Freddie Kitchens, absolutely.
So,
I mean, that was his so stupid.
And in hindsight, you can kind of understand the decision because Freddie Kitchens just came in as the OC when he had a nice year, had a nice rapport with Baker, and Baker had some input on it. So, I understand the move. Let's not be revisionist history and say that it was so stupid, he shouldn't have done that. No, for the time, it made some sense.
So, although, the counterpoint, the interim coach at that time was Greg Williams, and they were much better under Greg Williams.
Well, he's notoriously dreadful to work with. So the other front office
results.
Yeah, true. Well, except for last year when he was on the Jets defense.
But I mean, come on.
The other front office piece that I just wanted to touch on, and maybe we can close it out after this, is just I did want to talk about Chris Spielman.
Yeah.
So he comes from the booth to join the Lions front office as kind of like an executive assistant kind of role.
Yeah,
it's kind of vague.
I can't remember his official
title.
Term. Yeah, title.
It's kind of vague, but
yeah.
In a time where we did not have Brad Holmes hired yet, we did not have Dan Campbell hired yet, and the staff is pretty bare bones. For a time, it was literally just Sheila Ford Hamp, Rod Wood running the show.
Yeah.
And Bevel, right. So they said, okay, well, we need, despite Rod Football Wood, whatever his name is, we need someone who actually understands football
organizations
to come in and run this thing. And Spielman is infamously a big Lions, connection and fan.
One of the best Lions players of all time.
And also his brother, Rick Spielman, general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. So he understands how front office works.
Mm-hmm.
They bring him in, and that was the first offseason move where it was noticeable that, they're trying something a little different.
And
here.
I think they did the same thing with Barry. They had him
as part of this committee to find their GM and head coach. So I've said it before, but all these moves are new and promising, and I think the right way to go about the situation. It's going to be really tough the next couple of years to watch this thing happen in real time. But I mean, can you just imagine one day if we're talking about, man, the Lions are a shoo-in for the playoffs. Can they go win a playoff game on the road? Like, can they get to the NFC title game? I mean, imagine if we're having these conversations in a couple of years. Like, these are the moves that smart teams are making. So it's good to see them kind of start to go down this path.
Yeah. Right now. We're both chugging Kool-Aid, so we have to, kind of take the glass away from our lips every once in a while.
I know, but like
not drink the entire glass quite yet.
I know. But that's what we want to build for.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of all this. It's enough mediocrity. It's enough being a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it different. And so far they're doing that. So that is why I'm drinking Kool-Aid.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. The only thing now the front office can do that would really make a difference, just pay Calvin his money.
Actually,
that guy as an ally.
Well, they started sweetening up to him when he got his Hall of Fame nod.
Of course.
So I could actually see that incoming within the next year or two.
Let's really hope. I would love to see a game where Calvin returns.
Make it happen, Sheila.
Yeah, please. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you once again for tuning in to the second episode of the Gridiron Zeros podcast. We really appreciate you listening.
Lots of fun. Episode 2, as we said in our Lions discussion, right now the only part of the show we plan next week is to touch on Matthew Stafford's departure from the Detroit Lions and his tenure here. And as always, we'll cover recent news, and we'll think of a fun weekly topic for you.
Be sure to bring the tissues for next week's episode.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be tough. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Later.